Welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a very quick blackout card that I'm going to use. I'm using an embossing folder from Simon Says Stamp, as well as the two-step Simple Leaves stamp set. That's a lot of S's, from Simon Says Stamp, again out of the, I think it was the November card kit. So what I've done is I've embossed onto some cardstock. This is a creamy colour cardstock, and embossed that using the embossing folder that I showed. And now I've turned the embossing folder over, not the embossing folder, the piece of cardstock over. So normally with embossing you want that raised effect, which is the whole point of an embossing folder. But if you turn it over, you'll get the debossed version, so the images will look like they're sinking into the cardstock. And so if you turn it over and then rub very gently and lightly over the top, as flat as you can, a different contrasting colour over the top of that, you'll then leave the images behind, but the background will be whatever their colour is. So I used black licorice lawn fawn ink. It's a small 1-inch cube, and it just made sense to add that to to move that around. But a larger ink pad will work just as well. Obviously it's a larger area, so it's going to be easier and quicker probably than it took me, but it didn't take too long. So now I've got another piece of the cream cardstock, and I've just cut this down. I made the sizes work so that the embossing folder didn't get lost in the background. So this is a piece of cream cardstock, and I've got the leaf, and the large leaf looks like an oak leaf to me. Maybe it's not an oak leaf, but don't quote me on that. And a sentiment to go with it, which I'm stamping in the same black ink. And then what I'm going to do is take the solid piece and use the, I think it's pumpkin spice lawn fawn ink as well to stamp that in, and you'll see that in a second. So I've got a heartfelt thanks and this beautiful leaf. I love the size of this leaf. It's so cool. And so what I'm going to do now is take the solid area. This makes stamping so simple when you've got like a solid and an outline image. You can obviously colour in the outline image as you would with any stamp. You can emboss it with some embossing powder and do some watercolour effects, all those sort of things that you would normally do with your stamps. This one has a solid piece that goes with it, so I am going to have to stamp this a few times because it's quite a large stamp, and it's also onto a textured piece of cardstock, so that's something else to consider. To be honest, I went as far as I went with it until I was kind of happy with it, just because the texture kind of adds a bit more to it. So if you're into that kind of thing, then that's great. I also took some chili pepper ink and went around the edges of the, I know I'm off camera for this, I'm sorry, but I went around just the edges of the stamp itself, and that just gives a darker area. This is something that was done many years ago, and I think they call it, is it ink rocking? Is that what it's called? The rocking technique? No, maybe not. But it just creates a bit of like a blended look without blending. Makes it really, really easy. So now I have a cream colour cardstock base, which is I think this one's A2 in size. Then I have some brown cardstock that is 1/4 of an inch smaller, so this would probably be like 4 by 5 1/4. And then I have my layer for my embossed panel, the blackout piece, and that's just going to have a really thin border. In fact, I think the embossed piece, the blackout background, I think that was 4 by 5 1/4, and then the brown is just slightly like a tiny bit, maybe 1/8 of an inch bigger. The size doesn't matter as long as you're happy. The whole point is just to get some layers on there and just to give some different interest to your card. So then I have another piece of the brown cardstock and my main like focal point, and again the brown is just slightly bigger than the cream panel. And I know it's very difficult to actually see the brown cardstock on screen, but it is there, and in real life it actually looks pretty cool. So I know brown and black together is probably not a typical color that you would put together, but actually they work really nicely. So I really like this. It's very autumnal. I know we are now, when I'm doing this, finally doing this, we are in the height of winter, but I just thought this was such a pretty, very simple to do card. If you don't like the blackout technique, you don't like getting inky like that, just use a good pattern paper in the background, or just emboss that piece of cardstock, and that will work too. But I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you like this sort of style of card, and I hope you drag out your inks and get some blackout ink going. So until next time, guys, bye for now.